2 billion people, 25% of global GDP. I mean, we aren't just talking about moving a few shipping containers here.
Not at all. We're talking about a fundamental shift in the global economic architecture.
And with the India-EU summit on January 27th, it's literally 6 days from now, the pressure cooker is officially on.
It is absolutely down to the wire. It's January 21st, 2026, and you hear all this confidence from officials, saying the deal is on the verge of being finalized.
Right.
But then you look at the actual text and you realize just how much heavy lifting is left to do in, well, less than a week.
It's funny, we've been hearing about this deal since 2007, but this time feels completely different. It's being framed as a modern free trade agreement.
Which is usually code for way more complicated.
Exactly. Not just cutting tariffs on cars or whiskey. We're looking at really deep integration, digital trade, investment, sustainability standards.
And that shift is completely intentional. The context has just changed so dramatically. For the EU, this isn't just about finding a new market. They're looking for a fourth pillar in their global partnerships.
A strategic pivot.
Yes.
Yes.
It's about diversifying away from that overdependence on China. They need a reliable, democratic heavyweight in Asia. And let's be honest, India is the only candidate that really fits that bill.
And for India, the motivation seems pretty clear, too, locking in access to a high-value economy. But I would argue it's also about the technology transfer.
Oh, absolutely.
If you want to upgrade your domestic industry, you need that German engineering, that European investment flowing freely.
Precisely. On paper, it is the perfect symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
But that geopolitical romance, it hits a pretty hard wall when you get into the gritty economic details.
The persistent complex issues, as they're politely called.
Which are actually deal breakers for some pretty major sectors.
And the biggest one has to be CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. I mean, if you're an Indian steel or aluminum manufacturer, that adjustment looks a lot less like environmental policy and a lot more like a
protectionist tariff.
Yeah.
You've hit the nail on the head. That is the friction point.
Right.
The EU argues, look, CBAM is essential for our climate goals. We have to tax carbon-intensive imports to match our own internal standards.
But for India,
whose manufacturing sector still relies so heavily on coal, this effectively wipes out their main competitive advantage.
which is lower production costs.
Exactly. If Indian steel suddenly costs the same as French steel because of this carbon tax, the whole deal loses a massive chunk of its value for New Delhi.
It puts the EU in a bind, doesn't it? They can't just exempt India without undermining their own climate laws, but if they don't offer flexibility, the deal might just fall apart.
And then you flip the coin. What India wants. It isn't just about selling goods, it's about selling talent. This services mobility clause seems to be the other massive hurdle.
So we're talking about making it easier for professionals to work across borders.
Yes, software engineers, consultants, doctors.
Yeah.
Getting much easier access to work in Berlin or Paris. For India, this is a non-negotiable part of a modern deal. They aren't just selling textiles anymore, they're selling high-end services.
But immigration and visa rules are notoriously sticky subjects in European politics right now.
A regulatory nightmare. Getting 27 member states to agree on a unified policy for Indian professionals is, well, it's incredibly difficult.
And that's where we see the tension, right? The geopolitics versus the economics.
That's it. Geopolitically, both sides are desperate for a win next week. They want to signal unity against rising authoritarianism and, trade protectionism from the U.S.
But economically,
The gaps on carbon taxes and visas are still really, really wide.
it feels like a high-stakes game of chicken. You've got the political leaders pushing for a signature to cement this democratic alliance.
But the technical negotiators are looking at the fine print on CBAM and digital privacy laws and saying, hold on, the math just doesn't work yet.
And that's the danger. Analysts are warning that if they rush a signature just for the photo op on the 27th, we might end up with a hollow deal.
A skinny agreement. It looks good in the headline, but it leaves the really tough issues unresolved. You could end up with a situation where Europe gets market access, but India's key exporters get walled off by green regulations.
Just the next 6 days are essentially a test. Political will versus economic reality.
Exactly. And it raises a massive question for the global order, really. In a world driven by these intense strategic rivalries, can a trade deal successfully balance economic autonomy, keeping your own rules on climate and borders, with this desperate need for political signaling? Or does one inevitably have to compromise the other?
We'll find out on the 27th. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.